Shocking truth, sign the power of attorney now, or risk losing your grandkids forever. The clock was ticking. The room felt cold, almost ominous, as Ellen stared at the document in front of her. It seemed to pulsate, like a living thing hungry for her signature. The words blurred together, but the fear gripping her heart was crystal clear. If she didn't act, she could be stripped of everything she held dear. The house creaked eerily, windows rattling ever so slightly as if whispering secrets. Shadows danced against the walls, twisting with the evening light. Outside, the wind howled, a mournful sound that sent a shiver down her spine. She felt the lump rise in her throat, her hands trembling as she thought of her grandkids, laughter echoing in her mind like a haunting melody. Could they really be taken away from her? Just days earlier, a stranger had knocked on her door, a slick lawyer with a too-perfect smile. "It's all for your protection," he said, his voice smooth as silk. But that grin, it felt threatening, like a wolf hiding behind sheep's clothing. And now, she couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was at play. She glanced at the old clock on the wall, each tick amplifying her anxiety, echoing like a drumbeat in her ears. "Simon, Ellen," she muttered, trying to rally her courage. "You've faced worse." But deep down, she knew this was different. Something felt off, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the world was closing in. The memories of her grandchildren's tiny hands in hers made her heart ache. They were her everything. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." Ellen peered out the window into the dim street. The neighborhood felt different, shadows longer, faces unfamiliar. A pulse of adrenaline ran through her as she heard whispers outside. "Did you see her?" She asked, losing them. It sent a chill down her spine. Who were they talking about? Her heart raced again. It was just a piece of paper, right? But what if it was more? What if signing it really meant she was giving up more than she could ever imagine? The air grew heavy with tension, and every second stretched out like an eternity. This wasn't just about a document, it was about a life, her life, in danger of unraveling. Then her phone buzzed, breaking the dreadful silence. A text from her daughter lit up the screen. "Mom, we need to talk." I heard something. Ellen's breath caught in her throat as dread washed over her. What had she stumbled into? And was it already too late? Ellen's finger hovered above the screen, pulse quickening as she reread the message. "What did you hear?" She typed with shaking hands, heart thrumming like a trapped bird. Each second felt heavy, the anxiety pooled in her chest, a tightness that threatened to choke her. The response came almost instantly. "Can't talk long. Just watch out. They're not who they say they are." It felt like a jolt of electricity coursing through her. Who were they? And why was her daughter so terrified? Clutching the phone, Ellen glanced back at the document laid like a predator on the table. Sign. Or lose everything. The weight of the choice felt unbearable, but the truth was beginning to pierce through her fear. Something deeper, something darker was surrounding her family. Just then, a sharp knock cut through the air. Ellen jumped, her heart racing, as she turned toward the door. Was it another visit from that lawyer? Or had someone else come to threaten her? She held her breath, frozen, eyes darting to the window. A figure outside loomed, shadowed and indistinct. Ellen squinted, trying to decipher the silhouette. The porch light flickered, making the scene almost surreal. She couldn't risk opening the door. What if it was a trap? Then the knocks grew more insistent, a thunderous sound echoing off the walls. "Ellen. Open up. I know you're in there." It was a voice she recognized. Familiar yet tainted with urgency. Mark, her estranged brother. The last time they spoke had been a screaming match, Words like knives cutting through their relationship. Why was he here? Ellen hesitated but then approached the door, peering through the peephole. Mark's eyes were wild, darting with fear. Ellen, please. Let me in. It's not safe. She opened the door just a crack, enough to feel the intensity radiating off him. What do you want? Just listen. I heard about your meeting with that lawyer. His words tumbled out, breathless. You're in danger. I gotta call someone else watching you. Her stomach twisted. Watching me? Why? Because of the power of attorney, he pressed on, voice low. You didn't just call that guy, did you? He approached you. Ellen's breath hitched. Somehow, instinct told her he was right. How do you know? They're getting desperate, Ellen. I don't know who they are, but they want control. And they'll do anything to get it. A sudden realization dawned. This wasn't simply about a document, this was about someone trying to tear apart her family. Unwelcome rage flowed through her. Then why didn't you help me before? Because I didn't know. I was fighting my own battles. His voice cracked. You have to trust me. We must figure this out together. The shadows felt closer now, clawing at her resolve. Did she trust him? Could she risk letting him back into her life when the stakes were so high? Just then, a powerful gust of wind rattled the window, cold air slicing through her resolve. Mark stepped closer, urgency etched in his features. We can't waste time. I have a plan, but you need to. Before he could finish, the lights flickered again, plunging the room into darkness. Ellen felt a cold dread seep into her bones. Mark, what's happening? He grabbed her hand, gripping it tightly. They're here. We have to get out of here. Now. Panic surged as she pulled away, glancing toward the document. Was signing a paper worth what might come next? As dread wove its way into her thoughts, she was aware every choice now felt like stepping into a trap. The moments felt stretched, drawn out and haunting. What's your plan? She whispered, the shadows closing in like a pack of wolves. As she stared into the unknown, a new question gnawed at her. What had she really invited into her life? And would she ever truly escape? The air in the room thickened, swirling with fear and uncertainty. Mark's grip tightened around Ellen's wrist, his eyes wide and desperate. We can't wait here. They'll break through any second. Ellen's heart raced. It felt like the walls were closing in. Who are they? The question tasted bitter on her tongue. She had to know, needed to understand exactly what they were up against. I don't know. Mark snapped, his frustration bubbling over. But they're ruthless. I heard things about people disappearing, families torn apart. It's all connected to that document. The shadows darted around the room, flickering and twisting like living things. Ellen strained to hear anything outside: a whisper, a footstep, a sign that something malevolent lurked just beyond her door. Every second felt like a countdown, time slipping through her fingers like water. Ellen, listen to me, Mark's voice lowered to a near whisper, urgency pressing against each syllable. There's a safe house. We can go there, regroup. It's not far from here. We'll figure this out together. Safe house. A flicker of hope sparked within her, but it was quickly doused by reality. The thought of leaving everything behind her home, her life, was paralyzing. What about Lily? She breathed, fear gripping her chest tight. The girl was alone, and Ellen's mind spiraled with all the worst-case scenarios. Mark's face clouded with worry. I'll contact her. We can't risk staying here, he said, but then paused, anxiety cutting through his voice. She needs to be safe, too. Ellen's breath hitched. But what if she doesn't follow us? What if they get to her first? The weight of the world bore down upon her. She couldn't bear the thought of any harm coming to her daughter. I'll take care of it, Mark rushed, reaching for his phone. The dim glow from the screen glanced off his face, revealing lines of panic that hadn't been there before. Just trust me on this. Doubt gnawed at Ellen. Years of anger and resentment crowded in her mind. Could she truly put her trust in him? Everything she worked for hinged on this moment. I don't even know if you're telling the truth. Her voice cracked under the weight of her fears. Neither do I. He shot back, exasperated. But what I do know is, we cannot stay here. Another loud bang echoed against the door, unnatural and forceful, rattling the hinges. The noise churned her stomach. Was it just her imagination, or could she hear muffled voices outside, hushed yet urgent? Now! Mark shouted, snapping her back into reality. We'll figure the rest out on the way. They won't stop until they have what they want. Taking a deep breath, Ellen made her choice. Adrenaline surged as she nodded, letting go of her grasp on the familiar. Okay, let us do this. Mark crashed through the door, revealing a darkened hallway lit by flickering light. Follow me. He urged. They sprinted down the corridor, Ellen's pulse thundering in her ears, legs pumping with the desperate hope that safety lay just a few steps ahead. But then they heard a soft scrape, like nails on glass, as if something or someone had entered the house behind them. Ellen's heart dropped as dread twisted in her gut. Who was following them? Were they really escaping, or merely walking into a trap far worse than the one they had just left? Mark, we can't go that way. She gasped, eyes wide with panic. We need to find a different exit. But before Mark could respond, lights flashed on in the hallway, illuminating the darkness with stark, harsh clarity. A figure stepped forward shrouded in menace. He smiled, and it was no smile at all. Looking for this? The man hissed, holding up the document Ellen had hesitated to sign, eyes gleaming with sinister delight. Ellen's breath caught in her throat. This was only the beginning, and already it felt like they were being pulled into the abyss. Run! Mark yelled, but the figure was quicker, too quick. As they turned to escape, a loud thud echoed behind them, leaving no doubt, the chase had begun. What horrors awaited them at every turn? And could they truly outrun the shadows closing in around them? The moment was chaotic. Ellen's heart hammered as she and Mark bolted down the hallway, the eerie laughter and the echo of their pursuer's voice trailing behind them like a dark cloud. Fear electrified her veins, sending shockwaves of urgency through her. If they didn't escape now, she could lose everything. Where do we go? Ellen gasped between breaths, her legs pumping faster, desperation driving her forward. She barely registered Mark's frantic glances, searching for an exit, any exit, that might lead them to safety. Just ahead. He shouted, pointing to a door at the end of the hallway. It looked ordinary, inconspicuous, yet in this dreadful moment, it seemed like an oasis in a desert of despair. As they reached the door, a deafening crash reverberated from behind, the sound reverberating through her bones. Ellen froze for just a split second, terror painting the scene before her, a massive shadow barreling through the darkness, drawing closer, intent on capturing them. Ellen. Now. Mark's voice was sharp, pulling her from the brink of helplessness. He shoved the door open, leading them into a narrow staircase that spiraled down into darkness. They stumbled into the stairwell. The air was stale, almost suffocating, but there was no turning back. Mark steadied himself, his hands gripping the railing. Ellen followed closely behind, her mind racing with thoughts of Lily, the fear choking her resolve. Could she really leave her baby alone? At the bottom, they emerged into an underground hallway lit by flickering fluorescent lights. The air was damp, clinging to their skin as they hurried forward, their breaths intertwined with the smell of mold and wet earth. Which way? Ellen's voice trembled, her pulse racing as they reached a fork in the eerie path. Left. Mark responded decisively, leading the way again. Every moment stretched into eternity, every shadow felt charged with menace. They pressed on, desperate to escape the unseen terror that trailed behind them. Suddenly, an ominous sound halted them in their tracks, a scraping noise that echoed from the darkness behind them. It was low, unsettling, like fingers dragging along the walls, leaving a trail of dread over their thoughts. What was that? Ellen whispered, her voice barely audible. Mark's face was grave. We can't stop, he urged. But before they could decide, a figure lunged into view from the shadows, illuminated by the flickering lights. The same man with the sinister smile, his eyes glinting with malicious glee. "Did you really think you could escape so easily?" he taunted, stepping closer. "This is just the beginning of your descent, Ellen." Ellen's stomach twisted, her body responding before her mind could catch up. "Run!" she screamed, grabbing Mark's hand and dragging him back the way they came, but as they turned, Ellen felt the darkness closing in, whispering secrets in a language she couldn't understand. The dread bubbled over as she glimpsed another figure emerging from the shadows, blocking their path. It was a trap. "Mark!" she cried out, panic coursing through her. Her hands trembled, the stakes of their situation weighing heavily. "Trust me," Mark shouted, spurring her on. "This way." They ducked into a small side room, squeezing through a barely open door. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of dust and decay. Just as they thought the darkness would hide them, the lights flickered, nearly flickering out, as if mocking their efforts to escape. "Quick, we can hide here," Mark urged, pulling her to the back corner. They crouched down, their breaths heavy with fear. Ellen could hear her heartbeat in her ears, loud and chaotic, dreading the moment they would be found. What if they know we're here? She could hardly breathe through the rising panic. Mark's face darkened. "They will, but we have to outsmart them. If we can just wait." His voice trailed off, the uncertain weight of fleeing versus fighting resting heavily on his shoulders, the unsettling silence stretched out before them, tightening Ellen's chest. What were they really running from? And deep down, did they stand any chance of survival? In that charged moment, a shadow passed just outside the door. A decision hung in the air, sharp enough to cut. They had to act before the darkness engulfed them. Would they fight, or try to escape yet once more? And what shadows still lingered in their wake, waiting for the moment they stepped out into the open? Cold sweat trickled down Ellen's back as she clutched Mark's arm, her body rigid with fear. Every instinct screamed for them to stay hidden, yet the oppressive silence felt like a trap, tightening around them. The faint sound of approaching footsteps made her heart race again, thudding violently in her chest, each beat a reminder of all that was at stake. "Do you hear that?" she breathed, pressing a finger to her lips as she strained to listen. The footsteps stopped just outside the door, and a low, guttural laugh echoed through the darkness, sending chills down her spine. "They're right there," Mark whispered, his voice barely a tremor above a whisper. Panic danced behind his eyes, matching Ellen's growing terror. She thought of Lily alone, helpless, and the stakes became ever more dire. Maybe they could wait it out. Maybe the shadows would pass them by. "Mark, show." He silenced her, his eyes darting to a nearby window that overlooked a patch of darkness, the glass smeared and filthy. She followed his gaze, desperately trying to concoct an escape plan. If they could just find a way to climb out unnoticed. But the footsteps moved again, closer this time. Suddenly, the door rattled as a heavy hand pressed against it from the outside, testing their feeble barricade. Ellen's pulse raced with the realization that hiding might no longer be an option. "Run!" Mark exploded, shoving against the door, forcing it with all his might. It cracked open, and Ellen felt an icy rush of air sweep by them like a harbinger of doom. "Now!" They sprinted out of the corner, barreling down the corridor without a backward glance, the dark voice chasing them still echoing in her ears. "Come back, little mice!" it taunted, each word dripping with bitter amusement. Ellen's stomach churned as they turned another corner, their surroundings becoming more twisted with every frantic step. Where were they? And how long could they keep this up? "Mark, we can't keep running forever," she gasped, desperation leaking into her voice. "There has to be a way out." His eyes flicked around as they ran, searching for signs of hope amongst the crumbling walls and flickering lights. But there was nothing, just more shadows and echoes of danger. They slammed into another door, this one sturdier, with a locked handle. Mark shoved against it, panting like a wounded beast. "Help me!" he yelled desperately. Ellen didn't hesitate. Together, they pushed against the door with every ounce of their remaining strength. It creaked, wavering under pressure. A sudden crash came from behind, the sinister shadow reappearing with a fierce growl, flickering in the dying light. It was like an avalanche of terror, swift and unavoidable. Faster! Mark shouted, and Ellen's heart dropped. The door gave way just in time, flinging open into a large room that looked like it had been abandoned for decades. Dust hung in the air like fog, and the light barely penetrated through filthy windows. She could see the cracked remnants of furniture and broken glass scattered throughout. Over there. Mark pointed towards another exit, but before they could move, the laughter echoed again, this time warmer, more inviting, as if mocking their desperate flight. Ellen's breath caught in her throat. In the corner sat an old piano covered in vines and neglect, haunting and beautiful. It seemed to shimmer, promising something unknown, something dangerous but tantalizing. This way! She shouted, impulsively darting toward the instrument as if it had a hidden power. Mark hesitated but followed, uncertainty flashing across his face. As they approached, the air thickened like molasses, wrapping around them in an intoxicating embrace. Did they dare to probe deeper into this haunted sanctuary? With everything on the line, Ellen reached out to touch the piano's weathered keys. But before she could press down, the echo of their pursuers' laughter morphed into anxious whispers, echoing around them, dark and filled with foreboding. That a sudden smell of smoke wafted through the air, pressing over her like a warning flag, and the door slammed shut. Behind them. What had they stumbled into? Could it be their salvation or their doom? The choice was about to come crashing down like a freight train, and they weren't the ones driving it. The air thickened with tension, panic clawed at Ellen's throat. She gasped, scrambling back from the piano as the room began to shift. Shadows twisted like serpents, closing in around them. The laughter, dark and twisted, turned into a chorus of whispers, wrapping around her ears with an icy grip. What is happening? Mark, we need to get out, she shouted, her heart thundering like a war drum. She reached for the door, but it was no use. It felt like it was glued shut, a solid wall as immovable as the fear strangling them. Mark stepped back, his palms sweating. There's got to be another way, he muttered, eyes wide, darting around the room. The smoke turned thicker, pouring from unseen corners, and the acrid scent clawed at her senses. It was suffocating, the world narrowing to just the two of them and the malice that surrounded them. Wait! Ellen inhaled sharply as a ethereal sound rose deep from the piano. It was a melody, haunting yet beautiful, somehow calling to her. It struck a chord within her as if it was beckoning her closer. But the room felt too sinister, too alive with danger. Don't, Mark warned, grabbing her arm. That's not right. Ignoring him, Ellen moved toward the piano, entranced. Something about it felt like a memory, something lost just out of reach. Ellen, no. Mark's voice broke with panic, snapping her back to reality. The shadows shifted, bending unnaturally as if preparing to seize her. The laughter rose again, echoing inside her head. It was intoxicating. Help me, damn it! Mark shouted, but the words barely pierced the fog wrapping around her. She reached out, fingers hovering hesitantly above the dusty keys. And in that instant, everything changed. The whispers intensified, swirling through her mind, swirling memories she didn't recognize. A fireplace, a woman's laugh, the smell of cookies baking. Was it home? Ellen. Mark's voice cut through the haze. In an instinctive act of defiance, she slammed her hands down on the keys. The sound burst forth with ferocity, a beautiful ominous chord that shattered the silence like glass. The laughter turned to a wail, echoing, ricocheting around the room. The air crackled like electricity, the shadows recoiling as if struck. Mark stumbled backward, eyes wide with fear. Now what did you do? He exclaimed, backing away from the creeping darkness that surged toward them. Ellen felt a rush of power, washed in the echo of that haunting melody. I don't know, she said desperately. But it feels alive. As the piano's sound filled the room, it vibrated with life, and within the sound, fragments of the past emerged, fleshing out the room with images that flickered like film. A woman dancing, laughter echoing in sunlit halls, hands held tightly, but it wasn't just a memory, it felt weighty, alive. The shadows screamed. They compressed, twisting, howling against the music, fighting to return to whatever void they crawled from. Ellen could feel it, this was a battle, and they were caught in its throes. Ellen! Make it stop! Mark yelled, nearly in tears, his voice breaking through her concentration, but she couldn't stop. The music was pulling her deeper, a thread entwining them with something ancient and powerful. She pressed down harder, fighting against the dark force clawing at her. They couldn't stay here, trapped between melody and horror. Mark! Help me! She cried, struggling to maintain her focus as the visions swirled chaotically. Mark rushed to her side, hand pressing beside hers on the keys. Together, then. He shouted. As their fingers danced over the keys, the room trembled. The shadows began to unravel, screeching, but still fought back fiercely, clawing at the light. What were they awakening? Friends or foes? But that wasn't the only question swirling through Ellen's mind as her pulse quickened. Was the music truly setting them free, or was it unveiling a deeper terror residing within? Just as the shadows seemed ready to dissipate, the piano suddenly stopped. The music fell away, and an oppressive silence smothered them once more, leaving only the thundering of their breaths. Did we do it? Mark panted, eyes wide and searching. But in that moment, a figure began to form from the very shadows around them, coalescing into something menacing. No, Ellen whispered, feeling a chill grip her heart. In the fractured silence, a voice emerged from the figure, a chilling invitation that reverberated through the air. Welcome back. You've been missed. Ellen's breath hitched. What had they awakened, and what did it want from them? The figure solidified before them, casting an eerie glow as the shadows twisted around it, coiling like smoke. Ellen's heart pounded in her chest, a relentless drum urging her to run, to hide, to escape this nightmare. Yet, she was tethered, fascinated, horrified. The shadowy entity loomed larger, its face obscured but radiating an ominous presence. Who are you? Mark stammered, his grip tightening on the piano as if it was their only lifeline. The entity laughed, a sound that dripped cold. I am the echo of what once was. The keeper of memories and the guardian of secrets. Ellen felt as if she had been plunged into ice water. Secrets? She echoed, her voice barely a whisper. Yes. The figure's tone shifted, turning gravelly and intense. Secrets you're desperate to recall. Secrets suppressed by time and fear. The walls around them flickered like a movie screen, images of a life before this haunting home materializing until they were almost tangible. A family gathered around a table, laughter, love, the warmth of belonging. But Ellen couldn't shake the feeling that these memories carried burdens too heavy for the soul to bear. What do you want from us? Mark demanded, his voice rising, filled with defiance overshadowed by dread. From you? Nothing yet. But I seek what you have awakened, the figure replied, extending an arm that dissolved into shadow, gesturing toward the piano. The music called to me, a lifeline stretched between worlds. Ellen looked to Mark, confusion playing on her features. What did we do? Your touch summoned me, the entity explained, its voice low and mesmerizing. The bond of blood, of memories lost, calls to those like me. Your family's pain, its buried sorrow releasing one note at a time. Ellen's stomach turned. Was that the reason for the visions? The memories clawing their way back? It felt as if the weight of the past threatened to crush her. But why now? Why them? Release us. Mark shrieked, his fury igniting against the entity's chilling calm. The shadows surged, swirling angrily as the specter remained unshaken. But that would be a mistake. I can fulfill your darkest desires. Knowledge is powerful. Would you seek the truth hidden away, or remain caged within these walled memories forever? What truth? Ellen breathed, desperation creeping into her voice. I don't want to hear more of this. We just want to leave. Leave? But what if the figure paused, a twisted smile etched into its shadowy face? You held the key to change your fate. To confront the darkness lurking in your family's history? Ellen locked eyes with Mark, anxiety pinching at the edges of her thoughts. What horrors lay buried beneath their seemingly mundane lives? Why was it all surfacing now, and what was the price of rediscovery? I want to go home. Mark shouted, voice quaking as the shadows pulsed around them, devouring the air. Home is where the truth resides. Will you dive deeper? The entity asked, its voice seductive yet chilling, inching closer as it loomed. Or will you flee from illumination and remain shackled by fear? Ellen felt a gust of wind collide with her, chilling and chaotic. She gripped the piano tightly, torn between dread and a yearning to understand the truth that had both haunted and shielded them. Did the cost of that truth outweigh ignorance? The shadows flickered, but the figure remained, waiting for their answer as the room thickened with the inevitable choice looming before them. Mark's voice was trembling now, his eyes darting between the figure and her. Please, what do we do? Just then, the air shifted, and a distant scream echoed through the walls, wailing like the wind. They both froze. Choose, the specter echoed, drawing back almost like an anticipated predator, and in that instant, Ellen realized that whatever they decided next would change everything. What chilling truths awaited them? But as the shadows danced hungrily at their feet, one thing was certain, they couldn't escape without confronting what was hidden. Would they be brave enough to unwrap the spine-tingling legacy their family had left behind? In the oppressive silence, Ellen made her choice, but the room trembled ominously as the past surged forward. What is coming for us? Mark whispered, fear lining his features. What if it's here already? As the weighted shadows surged again, the echoes of the past began to scream once more, drowning them in chaos. The question loomed: how far would they truly go to discover the dark truths lurking in their heritage? The presence hovered, its sinister form swirling restlessly as if eager to draw them into whatever horrors lay behind those family secrets. Ellen's pulse quickened. Was this the moment of revelation or despair? Mark's face twisted in fear, and she grabbed his hand, steadying herself against the rising storm of the supernatural. Do we really want to know? Mark's voice trembled, his eyes darting between the flickering shadows and the transparent specter before them. Ellen swallowed hard. What choice do we have? She replied, her voice fierce despite the quaking in her chest. We can't run from the truth. Not anymore. Ah, brave souls. The entity coiled closer, its voice resonating like wind through a canyon. To seek it is already a step toward mastery. Remember, knowledge can liberate or devastate. Ellen felt a shard of ice break through her resolve. What if uncovering their past unleashed a wave of suffering? The images painted on the walls were vivid, family gatherings turned to ash. Laughter morphed into cries for help. She squeezed her eyes shut, forcing herself to silence the rising tide of despair, but the shadows pulsed in reply, as if gloating, with a shaky breath. She recalled the stories whispered in corners, the ones meant for children, ghosts of ancestors, the weight of inheritance, secrets buried so deep they formed a chasm in her lineage. What do you want us to do? She asked, her heart racing. Listen, the figure purred, its voice now a sultry echo in her mind. The piano beneath their fingers began to vibrate, low notes resonating through the very fabric of reality. Let the music unlock what is hidden. Mark's grip tightened. What do you mean? We can't just play another tune. Ellen looked at him, doubt flickering in her mind's eye. But the pull of the shadows was undeniable. They wanted them closer, entwined within the threads of their own forgotten narrative. Maybe we have to, she said, her own resolve mingling with fear. We must face whatever's lurking. As if sensing their determination, the figure unfurled further into existence, its eyes two swirling pools. Let it guide you, it whispered, enticingly soft yet laced with malice. Before they could think again, her fingers fell upon the keys. A simple melody spilled forth, haunting yet familiar, a song from her childhood long lost to the haze of memory. The moment the notes danced into the air, the flickering walls exploded into vivid scenes, shouting kids, bright sunlight, a grandmother's laughter blending with thunderclaps, and then came the shadows. Darker, deeper, and more menacing than before. They morphed into figures, faces Ellen recognized from faded family photographs, eyes hollow with grief. The piano trembled beneath their hands. Sudden dread clawed at Ellen's throat as the visions twisted, memories interwoven with pain, betrayal, and despair. She saw her mother hiding tears behind a smile, her father's hands clenched in frustration. "Stop!" Mark shouted, as if sheer will could silence the past. "We didn't sign up for this." But neither could look away. They were hooked, bound to face the truth. "Only through acceptance can you sever the bonds holding you captive," the entity crooned, its form writhing with delight. "Each note you play reveals a piece of your legacy, but be warned, some truths may shatter you." Ellen's focus faltered. Could she bear what might emerge? The bitterness that clung to her ancestors seeped into her bones, pulling at her heart, but as she played, a new melody bloomed, softer, almost comforting. It melted through the shadows, offering a flicker of hope amidst despair. "Together," she whispered, and Mark nodded, the fear in his eyes mingling with a glimmer of bravery. Just then, a figure stepped from the darkness, unnaturally familiar. It was a woman, strong, but her face was warped in silence. Ellen's breath froze. Was that her grandmother? "Face me," the specter echoed from the depths, "and discover your inheritance woven with darkness and light." Ellen's heart skipped, the weight of that singular request crushing. The shadows twisted closer, and the air grew hot with anticipation. She was on the edge of something monumental, the abyss of family history beckoning. Could they truly confront the darkness waiting to break free? Or would it consume them whole? She turned to Mark, their eyes locking. "Are you ready?" But as more shadows erupted, swirling violently around them, Ellen and Mark realized the journey toward the truth was only just beginning. What would they face when the terrible unveiling echoed throughout the walls of their bloodline? The question hung thick in the air, punctuated by the ominous laughter reverberating from the entity. Or would the truth threaten them with more than just fear? The shadows twisted, coiling tighter around Ellen and Mark as the specter of her grandmother lingered just out of reach. The air crackled, thick with anticipation and dread. Ellen felt the pounding of her heart echo in her ears, each beat a countdown to the revelation she had feared her entire life. "Do you think she recognizes us?" Mark's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. Ellen shook her head, her mind racing with questions. I don't know. But we have to listen." The figure's eyes glinted with an otherworldly light, piercing through the layers of darkness, drawing them closer. "The music you play is but a key," the specter said, her tone resonant, laced with an eerie blend of warmth and warning. "With it, you might unlock memories bound by pain, memories meant to be unearthed or buried." Ellen's fingers hesitated over the piano keys, the melody still echoing in the shadows. Each note felt heavy, carrying the weight of generations. "Do you want to know?" The specter pressed, her gaze steady, as if reading their minds. "The truth can be a beacon or a curse. Maybe it's best to walk away." Mark interjected, growing frantic. He scanned the darkness as though expecting a tangible threat to emerge at any moment. "What if we get trapped in this haunting?" Ellen's gaze remained fixed on her grandmother's spectral figure. "And what if walking away means living in the shadow of ignorance forever?" The question lingered, a heavy silence punctuated only by the low hum of the vibrating piano. The shadows pulsed around them, drawing them into the stories that had been hidden for decades, an intoxicating pull that felt both comforting and sinister. Finally, Ellen's resolve blossomed within her. "I need to know," she declared, her voice ringing clear amidst the wavering illusions. "We need to face whatever this is." The specter's features softened, a flash of understanding flickering in her ethereal eyes. "Very well," she said softly. "But remember, not every truth is easy to bear. Some may unravel you." Ellen forced her fingers to dance upon the keys, summoning a complex harmony that merged sadness and hope. The music flowed, a gentle stream that lifted the veil over their shared history. Suddenly, the room shifted. The shadows pulled back, revealing a stark yet vivid scene of a family gathering in what appeared to be a sun-drenched backyard. Laughter echoed around them, vibrant and loud. Yet, beneath the joyous facade, Ellen could feel an undercurrent of tension, a clash of unspoken words. The visions twisted again, transforming into a darkened room filled with older relatives fuming quietly, whispers of betrayal darting between clenched jaws. Ellen's heart sank. Each glimpse into their family's past felt like she was opening fresh wounds. "Who are these people?" Mark whispered, his voice shaking. "What happened to them?" "I think they're members of my family," Ellen replied, disbelief flooding her senses as she recognized distant cousins' faces marred by grief. "Ellen." Her grandmother's apparition called out, the tone firm yet full of an unnerving softness. "You must understand that knowledge is power, but sometimes that power demands a price." "What's the price?" Mark asked, panic pouring over him like icy water. The spectre's gaze shifted and grew dangerously dark. "Will you sacrifice your peace for the sake of understanding? Beware, for loss may be the true inheritance waiting in the shadows." Ellen's chest tightened. She hadn't considered what the truth might cost them. The warmth of the earlier melody now seemed lost in a thick fog of uncertainty. I can't do this," Mark stammered, his voice cracking in fear. "We might be better off not knowing. We could go back." "Then go," the entity hissed, shadows shrouding them once more. "Run from the echoes of your past, but know that they will never leave you. The cycle continues." Ellen shook her head fiercely. "No. We won't run anymore." The fear gnawed at her, but anger surged stronger. "Play," she commanded, her voice quavering but determined. But before she could strike the keys, Mark felt himself slipping into darkness, the shadows clawing at him, dragging him away from her. "Ellen!" His yell filled the room, terror-stricken as he wrestled against the pull of silence. The visions began to swirl around, brighter yet more chaotic, the shadowy whispers promising secrets lost in the fabric of time. "What do you want?" Ellen cried, panic threading through her. "Only the truth," the specter replied coolly, its form shimmering ominously. "And for you to decide who will pay the toll to unveil it." Ellen's heart raced as icy realization crashed over her. What were they truly willing to sacrifice? Would they dare confront the cost of family secrets, or would the truth remain forever out of reach? As the shadows closed in, a piercing scream pierced the air, a mix of Mark's fear and her growing dread. Weighing everything they'd ever known against the currents of horror, Ellen braced herself for the heart-stopping choice that lay ahead. What would the darkness reveal, and at what cost? A frigid silence swallowed the room as Ellen braced for the unknown. The shadows pulsed around them with unnerving aggression, whispering secrets she couldn't yet comprehend. Mark thrashed in the darkness, his terrified cries dragging her back from the precipice. "Ellen!" His voice wrenched her heart, the panic electrifying the air. She leaped forward, reaching for him, determined to pull him back into the light. "Mark! Hold on." Her hands found his, gripping them tightly, panic igniting her resolve. The shadows clawed at him, desperate to sever their connection, but she wouldn't let go. "You'll make it." Their eyes locked with a fervent understanding. The fear was overwhelming, yet there was strength in their bond that the shadows couldn't sever. The memory of their shared laughter, of warmth forgotten in the encroaching darkness, blossomed within her. With a desperate clarity, she squeezed his hands, igniting a spark of defiance that surged between them. "Together!" she shouted, the sound crashing like thunder in the twisted air. Before she could question herself, Ellen dashed towards the piano. "We have to play to break the hold. It's the only way." Mark gasped, caught between terror and determination. "What if it doesn't work?" "Then we do it together, we face whatever comes next," Ellen replied, her voice trembling but full of purpose. With a swift motion, she pressed the keys, unleashing a melody that echoed with their shared struggles. The notes cascaded through the room, resonating against the anguished shadows, striking them with unresolved memories of joy and pain. Each chord pulsed with emotion, weaving a narrative between love and loss. "Release us!" Mark shouted, his voice carrying the thunder of their plight. As the sounds filled the room, the shadows shrieked, recoiling from the music, shattering under the weight of their awakening. A brilliant light erupted from the piano, illuminating the room like the dawn breaking after a long, dark night. The shadows screamed, trembling, contorting violently before dispersing into the corners, devoured by the warmth of the music. Ellen could feel the weight of her ancestors lifting, their pain transforming into the echoes of understanding, and then it was gone, the noise subsided, and the entities that had plagued them faded into nothing but whispers. Ellen collapsed against the piano, gasping for breath, the last remnants of fear ebbing away. "Mark, we did it." He stumbled over to her, his eyes wide, glistening with a mix of awe and relief. "Did we really?" Together, Ellen smiled, feeling the warmth of unity blanket them, as if their spirits had intertwined, binding them tighter than blood. The shadows didn't return, they had emerged victorious. There was silence, punctuated only by their breaths as the world around them began to settle into a quiet semblance of life. From the remnants of the shadows, figures began to emerge once more, not menacing, but filled with a soft glow. Ellen's grandmother stood before them, her expression tranquil. "Thank you for facing your fears," she said, her voice wrapping around Ellen like a comforting embrace. "The truth sets us free, but only if we dare to confront it. Will we be okay now?" Ellen asked, her heart racing one last time, unsure what this peace would bring. "Yes. Healing begins when we embrace our past," the specter replied, hope shining within her eyes. As her grandmother's figure began to fade, a sense of resolution filled the room. Mark took a deep breath, glancing at Ellen, his expression still reflecting disbelief. "I thought we were done for. We confronted what threatened to tear us apart, and we came out stronger." Her heart soared, a renewed sense of freedom pulsing through her veins. "We can take on anything now." In that moment, the weight of their family's secrets melted away, leaving behind only the path forward, a chance to rebuild what had been lost. Exhausted yet alive, the two stepped out of the shadows, ready to embrace the world together. With their hands clasped tightly again, they walked side by side, stepping into bright sunlight that promised new beginnings. Every step felt light, echoing laughter from their past mingling with the hope of their future. As they moved away from that haunted place, Ellen whispered, "We're finally free." And together, they would build a new legacy of connection, joy, and courage. Now is your moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss any more exclusive stories that delve into the unknown. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and spread the word. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this unforgettable conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel the power of confronting their fears. Your support matters. We're all in this together.